What if everything you believed about love was wrong? You've been told that if someone truly loves you, they'll stay, that they'll fight for you, that no matter what happens, they'll be by your side. But what if love, real, raw, soul-deep love, doesn't always look like closeness? What if the one who loves you the most is the one who walks away? That question can tear you apart because it challenges the core of what you've been taught to expect. It makes you question your worth, your story, your heart. But sometimes it's not your fault. Sometimes the person who disappears didn't do it to hurt you. They did it because they love you enough to let you go. Love isn't always loud, it isn't always convenient, and it definitely isn't always comfortable. Sometimes love is quiet, painful, invisible. It shows up in the spaces between words, in the silence of an unanswered message, in the final glance before they turn away. You want to scream, you want to chase them, you want to make sense of it all. But deep down, a part of you knows the truth. You needed this, not because you deserve to be left, but because something greater is trying to reach you. Something within you is ready to grow, and growth never happens in the safety of certainty. This is where transformation begins, in the confusion, in the heartbreak, in the absence of the one you thought would never leave. Their disappearance isn't just a loss, it's a shift, a redirection, a sacred invitation to come back to yourself. And that's why you're here. Not to relive the pain, but to find the purpose inside it, to feel every emotion and still choose to rise. Because the person who left may not have said it out loud, but their absence says something profound. You are strong enough to stand on your own. You're not broken. You're being broken open. And there's a difference. One leaves you shattered. The other sets you free. If you stay until the end of this, you'll start to see that difference. You'll begin to understand why their leaving wasn't the end of your story. It was the beginning of your becoming. You'll see that disappearing can be the most courageous form of love, because it's not about what you want, it's about what you need to become who you're meant to be. So breathe. You're not alone, you're not abandoned, you're awakening. And on the other side of that awakening is a stronger, wiser, more powerful version of you, waiting to be claimed. That version doesn't beg to be loved, it knows it is love. And when you get there, you won't just understand why they left, you'll thank them. Stay with this, because what's coming next will change how you see love forever. The pain of someone leaving doesn't just live in the moment they walk away, it echoes. It lingers in your thoughts, in your questions, in the silence they left behind. And that silence can feel louder than any argument. You wonder what you did wrong. You replay every conversation, every moment, trying to find the moment it all changed. But here's the truth you need to hear. Their leaving is not proof that you weren't enough. It's not confirmation that you failed. It's not a reflection of your worth. It's a reflection of a deeper wisdom, one that often reveals itself only after the pain. The human mind is wired to crave connection, to attach. And when that connection is ripped away, the brain interprets it as danger, even death. That's why it hurts so much. That's why your heart aches like a physical wound. Because to your mind, it is a wound. But pain, while real, is not always right. It doesn't always tell the whole story. Sometimes it screams lies so loudly that you can't hear the quiet truth underneath. You were not left because you were unlovable. You were left because love, real love, sometimes requires distance to do its work. You see, we often confuse pain with punishment. But pain is not always there to punish. It's there to reveal, to expose what you've outgrown, to bring up everything that still needs to be healed. And what hurts now might be the very thing that sets you free. But only if you let it. Only if you stop clinging to the version of love that says, if they cared, they'd still be here. Because real love isn't always measured by who stays. Sometimes it's measured by who's willing to leave so you can rise. This isn't about making excuses for someone who abandoned you. This is about giving yourself the power to reframe the story, to stop waiting for closure, to stop defining your worth through someone else's decision. The world will try to tell you that you were rejected. But what if you were released? What if that door didn't close to trap you, but to free you? What if their absence isn't a void, but a doorway to everything you're meant to become? Feel that. Not just in your mind, but in your chest, in your bones. You are not here to chase people who don't stay. You are here to chase your own greatness, to follow the path that was always meant to be walked alone for a while. And this season of solitude, it isn't punishment, it's preparation. Because the version of you that's waiting on the other side of this pain is powerful, whole, unshakable. And when you finally meet them, you won't be asking why someone left. You'll be grateful they did. Sometimes, the person who enters your life isn't meant to stay. They're meant to reveal. Not to give you everything you ever wanted, but to show you everything you still need to become. Love has a way of holding up a mirror. Not to flatter, not to comfort, but to reflect back what you've been avoiding. Your fears, your wounds, your patterns, the places where you shrink. The parts of you that ache to be seen but remain hidden behind your smile. And when love arrives like this, it doesn't feel gentle. It feels like being cracked open, like being exposed, like standing in front of your own reflection and realizing how much work still remains. But don't run from that reflection. Don't turn away. Because that mirror didn't come to destroy you, it came to wake you up. To remind you that love is not just about being chosen, it's about being challenged, to rise, to grow, to confront the version of yourself you've settled into and question whether that version is aligned with who you're capable of becoming. When someone you love pulls away, it might not be because they've stopped caring. It might be because their role in your story was to illuminate your next step, not walk it with you. And that's hard. It goes against everything your heart wants to believe. But when you stop chasing the fantasy and start embracing the truth, everything changes. You begin to understand that their leaving wasn't about the end. It was about the invitation. An invitation to face yourself, to become honest about your needs, to shed the illusions. Because sometimes the person who triggers your deepest pain also holds the key to your highest growth. Not because they give it to you, but because their absence forces you to find it on your own. It takes incredible strength to stop blaming them and start listening to the lesson, to move beyond the narrative of rejection and into the power of reflection. You were not destroyed by love. You were awakened by it. And if you choose to lean into the discomfort, into the silence, into the work, you will emerge as someone you've never met before, someone who no longer needs to be saved. Someone who no longer clings out of fear. Someone who finally realizes that wholeness isn't found in someone else's arms. It's found when you hold yourself through the storm. This is what love was always meant to do. Not to fix you, not to fill you, but to show you where you're still waiting to rise. And when you stop searching for the one who left and start becoming the one who stays with yourself, everything begins to shift. You stop asking, why did they leave? And start asking, what did they awaken in me? Because that answer is the beginning of everything. There's a kind of love that doesn't hold on, it lets go, not out of weakness, but out of wisdom. The kind of love that disappears doesn't do so to punish or reject, it vanishes because it knows its presence would only hold you back. That kind of love doesn't feed your need for comfort, it honors your need for growth. It knows that clinging to someone, even with the best intentions, can become a cage. And true love does not build cages. It builds space. Space for you to stretch, to stumble, to rise without needing someone else to catch you. Because what's waiting for you isn't dependency, it's freedom. Letting go is not giving up. It's an act of deep understanding, of knowing that staying might ease the pain temporarily, but would eventually slow your evolution. Some people love you so purely that they refuse to be your crutch. They disappear, not because they don't care, but because they do. So deeply, so fiercely, that they can't bear to stand in the way of your becoming. That kind of love is quiet. It's unglamorous. It often goes unrecognized. But it is sacred, and it is real. When someone chooses to leave so you can grow, it's not abandonment. It's respect. Respect for your path, for your process, for the version of you that can only be born through solitude. And that's where the transformation begins. Not when someone stays and holds your hand, but when you're forced to hold your own. That's where power lives. That's where truth emerges. Not in the presence of another, but in the moment you realize you don't need anyone else to validate your existence. It hurts, yes. It breaks you open. But don't confuse brokenness with defeat. You're not being torn apart. You're being reshaped. The one who left may have taken a piece of your heart, but in doing so, they made space for you to rebuild it stronger, with intention, with clarity, with love that starts from within, not from someone else's touch. This is the love that liberates, The love that says, I see your potential, even if you can't yet, and then steps back so you can finally see it too. Most people won't understand this kind of love. They'll call it selfish, cold. But the ones who have truly transformed know the truth. It takes far more courage to walk away with love in your heart than to stay out of fear. And if someone walked away from you, ask yourself this: were they really leaving, or were they lifting you? Were they giving you up, or were they giving you back to yourself? You don't have to have all the answers, but if you can hold that question in your heart without anger, without bitterness, you'll begin to see the gift in their absence, and that gift will become your strength, because what feels like the end is often just the beginning of you. Healing doesn't begin the moment they come back. It begins the moment you stop waiting for closure, for answers, for the apology that never arrives. Because the truth is, healing isn't about getting what you think you need from someone else. It's about giving yourself what they couldn't. It's about realizing that the peace you've been searching for isn't in their return. It's in your own release. The moment you decide that your future doesn't depend on their presence is the moment you reclaim your power, and that power has always been yours, you just forgot. We all crave certainty. We want things to make sense. But love doesn't always come with explanations. Sometimes the people who impact us the most are the ones who leave without warning. And that silence? It can feel like betrayal. But it can also be a mirror that shows you the parts of yourself that still look for validation outside, that still believe being loved means being held, that still equates attention with affection. But real healing begins when you stop asking, why did they leave me? And start asking, why was I willing to lose myself to keep them? Because that question is where the breakthrough lives. In the brutal honesty, in the discomfort of seeing your own patterns without judgment. You might realize you were chasing more than love. You were chasing worth. You were looking for someone to prove you mattered, because somewhere along the way you stopped believing it yourself. That belief didn't come from the person who left. It came long before them. And their leaving simply exposed the gap. That's not something to be ashamed of. That's something to confront, to honor, to heal. You are not unworthy because someone couldn't stay. You are not unlovable because someone didn't choose you. You are a whole universe trying to remember its light, and the absence they left behind? It's not a void, it's an open field, a space to grow, to redefine love on your own terms. Not as something to be earned, but as something to be embodied. You do not need someone to validate your value. You need to see it, you need to own it, and no one can do that work for you. That's why their silence can be your turning point. It doesn't have to be a wound you carry forever. It can be a doorway, one that leads you inward, deeper, to the place where your worth was never missing, only buried. You are not healing to become lovable. You are healing to remember you always were, and when that truth finally sinks in, you stop chasing love. You become it, not for anyone else, but for yourself. Because the greatest love story you will ever live begins the moment you stop waiting for them and start rising for you. The moment you decide to rise for yourself, everything begins to shift. Not instantly, not without pain, but undeniably. You start noticing the places where you used to abandon yourself. The moments you kept quiet so someone else could feel comfortable. The times you said yes when your soul was screaming no. And suddenly you realize it wasn't just about their absence, it was about how often you left yourself. Not physically, but emotionally, spiritually. You gave so much of your energy trying to be loved that you forgot what it felt like to truly love who you are without needing anyone to reflect it back. That awakening doesn't feel gentle. It feels like a storm breaking through everything you built on shaky ground. But that storm has a purpose. It clears away what you were never meant to keep. It forces you to rebuild, this time from the inside out. And this is where your power lives, not in being chosen, but in choosing yourself, over and over, without apology, without delay, without waiting for someone else to tell you you're worthy of it. The people who leave your life create space. What you do with that space defines your future. You can fill it with resentment, with longing, with the hope that maybe one day they'll realize what they lost. Or you can fill it with something greater, clarity, peace, boundaries, the kind of self-respect that refuses to settle for halfway love, the kind of self-awareness that sees red flags not as signs to fix someone, but as signs to protect yourself. Because when you finally love yourself enough, you stop needing anyone to stay to prove you're lovable. You begin to walk differently, speak differently, think differently. You no longer crave validation. You create it. You no longer beg for presence. You command peace. That's not ego. That's evolution. That's the result of rising through fire and realizing you were never meant to burn. You were meant to rise in flames. The version of you that emerges from that will not chase love. It will attract it. And not just any kind of love, the kind that recognizes the wholeness in you, the kind that doesn't complete you but joins you. But before that kind of love finds you, you must first become the one who can hold it. That's the journey. That's the work. Becoming so whole within yourself that no absence can shatter you again. Becoming so anchored in truth that no silence can shake your voice. That's the power you're building now. Quietly. Steadily. In every moment you choose yourself over your past. And when you look back, you won't see loss. You'll see liberation. You'll see that the one who disappeared didn't abandon you. They awakened you. And that awakening became the start of everything you were always meant to be. Healing is not a destination. It's a decision you make every day to choose yourself, even when it still hurts, even when the memories echo, even when the silence is loud enough to drown out your strength. But inside that silence is where your resilience is born. Not by forgetting, not by pretending it didn't matter, but by allowing yourself to feel everything and rise anyway. That is where real power lives. Not in avoiding the pain, but in owning it. Standing in the middle of it and saying, this will not break me, this will build me. There will be moments when you still miss them, not because you want them back, but because you remember who you were when they were beside you. But that version of you, she was still searching, still molding herself to fit into someone else's love. Now, you're becoming someone who doesn't shrink for anyone, someone who doesn't need to be chosen to feel enough. That shift is sacred. And it doesn't happen all at once. It happens in small choices, in the quiet moments when no one is watching, when you choose peace over chaos, when you choose truth over comfort, when you finally believe that your worth was never up for negotiation. You are not healing to impress anyone. You are not rising to prove anything. You are rebuilding so that the next time love comes, it meets the most authentic version of you, the version who doesn't beg to be seen because she already sees herself. That's the version that changes everything. She doesn't chase, she doesn't settle, she doesn't lower her standards just to feel less alone. She knows that solitude is not empty. It is a sacred space where clarity is born and strength is sharpened. You're learning to walk alone, not because you're meant to be alone, but because you're meant to know yourself without distraction, to stand in front of your life and claim it, without asking for permission, without seeking approval. You were not put here to become who someone else wanted. You were put here to become who you were always meant to be. And that path often begins where something ends. That kind of ending isn't failure, it's realignment. It's life pulling you back to yourself, saying this is where your story turns. The love you deserve will never require you to abandon yourself. It will never confuse you into silence or pull you into fear. But to recognize that kind of love, you must first become it. You must first clear the wounds, rewrite the beliefs, and rise so fully into your worth that you no longer entertain anything less. That's the work you're doing now. It's quiet. It's painful. But it's transformational. Because one day, when you look in the mirror, you'll see it clearly. Not the person who was left, but the person who never needed to be completed. Only remembered. Only reclaimed. Only risen. You are not hard to love. You are never too much. The right heart will never be intimidated by your depth, your softness, or the way you feel everything so fully. But before that heart can find you, you must stop watering yourself down just to be easier to hold. You must stop hiding your brilliance just to be more digestible. You were not made to fit into the comfort zone of someone else's limited capacity. You were made to expand, to stretch into the fullest version of yourself, even if it makes others uncomfortable. Especially if it does. Because the people who are meant for you will never ask you to shrink. They will never leave when your light gets bright. They will rise with you. But to receive that, you must clear the space that was once filled by those who didn't stay. You must look at the pieces of yourself you gave away in desperation and take them back with love. Not bitterness, not blame, just clarity. The kind of clarity that knows. Just because someone couldn't hold your love doesn't mean it wasn't worthy. It means they weren't ready. It means they weren't meant to go where you're headed. And that's not a reflection of your lack. It's a confirmation of your direction. Letting go of what doesn't serve you is not loss. It's alignment. It's self-respect. It's the moment you stop betraying yourself for the sake of being chosen. Because you know now you are already chosen. By life, by purpose, by the part of you that is still healing but hasn't given up. And that part of you deserves to lead. That part of you deserves to make the decisions. Because it no longer needs approval. It needs truth. And truth is what frees you. You don't need closure from them. You need connection with yourself. You need to see that the version of you that begged for love was doing the best she could with what she knew. She didn't fail. She simply didn't know yet that real love would never require her to fight to be seen. She didn't know yet that the greatest love would come after she stopped proving and started being. That version of you deserves compassion, not shame. She deserves to be honored, not hidden, because she carried you here. And here is powerful. Here is where the shift happens. When you stop wondering if they'll come back and start asking what you're building without them. When you stop waiting for love to find you and start becoming the kind of love that transforms everything it touches. This is your foundation now, built not from validation but from truth. Built not on what you've lost but on what you're no longer willing to lose, yourself. And from this place you rise not as someone abandoned but as someone awakened, fierce, free, unshakable, ready. There is a version of you that exists beyond the pain, beyond the doubt, beyond the moments where you questioned your worth because of someone else's inability to see it. That version is still here, waiting, not for them to come back, but for you to come home to yourself. She's not broken. She's not weak. She's not hard to love. She is simply tired of carrying the weight of a love that asked her to disappear. And now she is ready to rise, not to chase, not to prove, but to reclaim everything she once gave away, hoping it would be enough. This is not about becoming cold. It's about becoming clear, about seeing with unfiltered eyes the difference between love and attachment, attention and respect, longing and alignment. You are no longer here to confuse desire with destiny. You're no longer here to entertain half-hearted love, wrapped in temporary affection. You have reached the point where your heart demands more, not in desperation but in devotion, to yourself, to your growth, to the life that calls you higher. You don't owe anyone your silence just because they couldn't hold your voice. You don't owe anyone your time just because you once gave them your heart. What you owe now is truth, to stand in who you are without shrinking, without guilt, without waiting for someone to validate your strength. Because your strength is not defined by what you endure. It's revealed by what you choose. And you are now choosing differently. You are no longer chasing the idea of being loved. You are learning to be love, to embody it so fully that you no longer accept anything that costs you your peace. Because peace is no longer a luxury, it's your standard. Chaos no longer excites you. Mixed signals no longer confuse you. Distance no longer seduces you into proving your worth. That chapter is closed, not because it didn't matter, but because you finally realized what matters more, your wholeness, your clarity, your becoming. You are stepping into the kind of strength that doesn't shout, but radiates, the kind of energy that doesn't chase, but attracts, the kind of presence that doesn't beg to be seen because it already knows its light. That's who you are now, and with every breath you are becoming more of her, more rooted, more steady, more awake to your own enoughness. You are not rebuilding for them. You're rising for you, for the future that no longer waits on someone else's love to begin, for the life that doesn't just look good on the outside, but feels true on the inside, for the freedom that comes when you finally realize the one who disappeared didn't abandon you, they released you. And that release was not rejection, it was redirection, a gift wrapped in silence, a blessing disguised as loss. And now you no longer fear the silence, you honor it. Because it led you back to the only love that could never leave, your own. The path you are on now isn't about waiting for someone else to see your worth. It's about realizing that your worth has always been here. It's never been dependent on another person's ability to see it, hold it, or appreciate it. You were born whole. You've always been enough. And the moment you stop searching for validation outside of yourself is the moment you begin to walk into your power. It's the moment you stop looking back, stop questioning your value, and start seeing your own light, undeniable and unshakable. This is the time to stop holding on to the parts of you that were never meant to stay. You've carried so much weight in the form of unmet expectations, abandoned promises, and love that wasn't truly love. All of that is clutter. It's time to clear it, to make room for what's real, to make room for the love that isn't conditional, the peace that isn't fragile, and the strength that doesn't come from surviving, but from thriving. And in this moment of release, you don't need to look back at the people who couldn't see you. You don't need to wish for the answers they never gave. The ones who walked away were simply paving the way for you to find yourself. You don't need their approval. You need your own. Your approval is the only one that matters now. You are learning to trust yourself again, to believe in your own decisions, and to honor your own boundaries. When you know your worth, nothing else compares. You don't have to prove that you are worthy of love. You don't have to chase after anything or anyone. You simply need to stand in the fullness of who you are. The kind of love you deserve is the kind that doesn't make you question, doesn't make you doubt, and doesn't make you wonder if you're enough. You are enough. You always have been. And as you begin to embody that truth, you start to attract what is aligned with your highest self. You start to draw in the people who will reflect your worth back to you, not because they complete you, but because they see you for who you are. The moment you stop searching for love outside yourself is the moment it finds you in places you never expected. It finds you in the moments when you're not trying to be loved, but when you're loving yourself fiercely. It finds you in the quiet, in the moments of peace you fought so hard to create. The love you deserve is not dependent on anyone else's presence. It is something that will flow into your life when you are so full of your own energy that you no longer need to fill any empty spaces. Your journey now is about building your own foundation, a foundation that is rooted in self-respect, self-love, and self-trust. And as that foundation grows, you become unshakable. You will not bend to someone else's expectations or live under the weight of someone else's love that isn't for you. You will stand tall in your own power, knowing that the love you give yourself is the love that will guide you, protect you, and lead you to the life you were always meant to live. And when you finally stop waiting for others to see it, you will realize you've already seen yourself in the light you've always deserved. The truth is, you don't need anyone to complete you. You were never broken in the first place. The feeling of incompleteness that you've carried, it's the result of trying to fit yourself into places that weren't meant for you. You were made to stand whole, unapologetically yourself. Every time you doubted that, you let someone else define who you were. But now, the narrative is shifting. You're reclaiming the pen to write your own story. You no longer need to wait for someone else's approval to live your truth. You've already been through the hardest part, the awakening, the realization that your happiness, your peace, your future does not depend on another person's choices. That truth alone is enough to transform your life. You've been conditioned to believe that your worth is tied to how others see you, how they love you, and how they choose you. But now, you're learning that your worth is intrinsic. It doesn't need to be earned. It's already there, just waiting for you to acknowledge it, to honor it, and to live it fully. There's a quiet power in no longer needing to prove anything. It's the power of standing still, of being so grounded in your own worth that you don't have to chase or demand to be loved. The love that you have for yourself is the foundation. Everything else is simply a reflection. And this isn't about being perfect. It's not about being without flaws or without scars. It's about understanding that your flaws are a part of your beauty. Your scars are a part of your strength. They don't diminish you. They make you whole. They teach you. They lead you. And as you begin to embrace this truth, something shifts inside you. You become less afraid of the unknown, less afraid of being alone, because you know that being alone doesn't mean you're missing something. It means you're whole enough to stand on your own and create the life you want without depending on anyone to validate it. You realize that no person, no situation, no circumstance has the power to determine your worth. unless you allow it. You become the one who defines what's enough, what's worthy, and what's meant for you. This new way of living, this new way of being comes from a place of profound self-respect. You no longer entertain relationships, situations, or people that ask you to compromise your peace. You don't settle for anything that doesn't align with your highest self. You stop doubting your intuition. You trust it completely, because you know now that your inner voice is the only one that can truly guide you. The love you have for yourself will be the lens through which you see everything: how you approach relationships, how you approach opportunities, and how you approach your own growth. It will be your anchor in the storm and your compass when you're lost. It will guide you back to the path you're meant to walk, the life you're meant to live, and the person you were always meant to become. And as you continue to embrace this love, you will notice the world around you beginning to reflect it back to you. People will start to show up not to complete you, but to honor the completeness you already carry. And that, my friend, is the power of becoming whole.